The shadow side of desire. There comes a point in every woman's life when the language of logic stops making sense. You've read the books. You've told yourself all the right things. You deserve better. Ancients. You need boundaries. You have to move on. And yet, plumbing. Weaknesses, you still feel the pull. Not toward him necessarily, but toward the memory of something he awakened in you. A fire that had been sleeping under decades of self-control. A hunger that was never really about sex, but about aliveness. You try to name it. Tensions? Remession? Mass? Or maybe just the ghost of the girl who once believed she could be fully seen. Sailor between 35 and 54, this isn't just nostalgia. It's the psychic earthquake that shakes the foundation of a life built on roles. Mother, wife, caregiver, achiever, all the masks we wore so well, fists, until one day, something, or someone, cracks them open. He didn't even have to be extraordinary. Sometimes, he's the quiet one who said little but looked at you like he'd known you before you were born. Sometimes, he's the unavailable one, the one your body recognized faster than your reason. Sometimes, he's just a stranger who said the right thing at the wrong time, and suddenly, you were back inside your own skin, alive, trembling, terrified. You tell yourself you're too old for this kind of chaos, too wise, too conscious. But the body doesn't care about wisdom. The body remembers what the mind represses. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the place where every untamed impulse, every forbidden desire, every silenced truth lives. And desire, real desire, isn't polite. It doesn't follow rules or moral codes. It's not even interested in who's right for you. It only wants what's real. What most people call attraction, that spark, that magnetic pull, isn't about compatibility. It's about recognition. Something in him mirrors something you've disowned in yourself. That's why you can't look away. That's why you dream about him, even when you no longer love him. He is not the addiction. He is the mirror. And that mirror hurts, because it reflects both your beauty and your hunger, both your light and the darkness you were taught to fear. You were told that a good woman controls herself, that wanting too much makes you dangerous, that softness is weakness, and surrender is submission. So you became strong, perhaps too strong. You built walls high enough to keep out pain. And love never quite found the door either. But then one night, sexism's voice, someone's touch, someone's silence, cracked the wall open. And for a moment, maybe just one breath, you remembered who you were before you started performing. That's why he lingers. Not because he's special, but because the woman you were with him, unguarded, radiant, alive, pilgrim. You're not broken for missing him. You're human for craving yourself. The real journey begins not in forgetting him, but in remembering what he woke up in you, that pulse, that ache, that forbidden hunger. It isn't sin. It's your soul knocking on the door of your body, asking to be let back in. Jung said, stiffness, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And perhaps this is that pain. The moment life stops being a performance and starts becoming initiation. Because the truth is, desire isn't the enemy. Unconscious desire is. When you don't understand it, it owns you. When you meet it, it frees you. So tonight, pierced, if you're lying awake replaying conversations that ended years ago, if you're wondering why a part of you still burns for something you can't name, stay. Stay with me through this journey. We're not here to romanticize manipulation or obsession. We're here to look deeper, to see how the so-called immoral tactics of attraction that men are taught to use are nothing but reflections of unintegrated energy within us all. The shadow side of desire. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore why the very thing that made you lose yourself might be the same force that can bring you home. Why what once felt like control is actually the mirror of your own power. And how you, a woman who has lived, lost, and learned, can reclaim the kind of passion that no longer burns you, but lights you. Because the secret Jung left us isn't about avoiding desire. It's about learning to inhabit it consciously, to hold both the sacred and the sinful in one body, one breath, one truth. So, before we begin, close your eyes for a moment. Battleground. Jam a deep breath. And negativity, where your longing lives inside you. Is it in your chest, your stomach, missions, your throat? That is not weakness. Jiang is energy. That is life. And this, right now, is where we begin. The immoral mechanics of desire misuse. Most people think attraction is chemistry. Carl Jung would have called it alchemical. Because what we call chemistry is never random. It's the meeting of two unconscious forces trying to find wholeness through each other. But that alchemy can feel dangerous, especially for a woman who spent half her life learning to control herself. Let's be honest. There's something almost immoral about desire when you've been raised to be good. Palestinians, to be kind, generous, predictable, nurturing. You're supposed to love in ways that make others comfortable, not in ways that burn down the person you used to be. And yet, it happens. Xiaomi walks in, and suddenly the air changes. He doesn't even need to speak much. There's a stillness about him, a calm confidence that feels like gravity. Emissions your body notices before your mind does. It's not about what he looks like. It's what he represents. A kind of unapologetic certainty. The thing you've had to suppress in yourself for years. He moves with quiet dominance, and part of you, the part tired of holding everything together, exhales. This is the first secret of what many call emotional control. But underneath that, Jung would see projection. You are not falling for him. You are falling for the reflection of your own unlived energy. He becomes the carrier of everything you've repressed. Smith, your assertiveness, your boldness, your wildness, your capacity to lead and to want without apology. And because those parts were never allowed to exist safely inside you, you see them glowing in him and mistake them for love. This is what makes desire feel immoral. It exposes what society taught you to bury. It seduces you back to the truth of your own instincts, and that truth terrifies the ego. Jung called this the anima-animus tension. Inside every woman lives a hidden masculine, the energy of focus, decision, direction. When she suppresses it, she starts projecting it onto men. She's drawn to those who embody her missing parts. That's why powerful, emotionally steady men feel irresistible. They hold the structure she has denied herself. But here's the paradox. The more she depends on him for that balance, the more she loses herself again. It's not manipulation, it's physics. Every energy seeks its opposite to become whole, England, and when that opposite appears in human form, missions the psyche doesn't care if it's convenient. It only cares that it recognizes itself. Think of the first time someone made you lose control, not just emotionally, but existentially. You swore you wouldn't fall again. You had boundaries, clarity, maybe even therapy. And still, one look, one silence, one sentence, and your whole nervous system betrayed you. He didn't hypnotize you. Your shadow did. Because the shadow doesn't obey logic. It's ancient, instinctual, erotic. The part of you that remembers you are made of both hunger and holiness. The part that wants to be taken and to take, to surrender and to lead, to love and to consume. And for a brief moment, in the presence of someone whose energy mirrors that polarity, you feel whole again. That's the hidden law behind what the world calls attraction. It's not random. It's a ritual. It's your unconscious calling you back into balance through another person. But here's the danger. When we don't recognize that ritual for what it is, it becomes possession. You begin to orbit around the person who activated you, as if he holds the key to your soul. Smith emotional chemistry for destiny. You think, he must be the one, when in truth, he's only the mirror. Jung warned about this in his studies of psychological projection. Whatever we don't own in ourselves, we will meet as fate. The more unconscious the desire, the more powerful the obsession. That's why the same pattern keeps repeating. Pensions, different face, same feeling. Each man a new lesson in the same curriculum. This is what you've disowned. You see, the so-called immoral power men use to attract silence, tension, confidence, unpredictability. These are not male tricks. They're archetypal energies. And a woman who has integrated her own masculine doesn't fall under them. She resonates with them. She meets the energy, not the illusion. But for many of us, that integration takes a lifetime. Teeth, we've been taught that desire equals danger, that wanting too much makes us less spiritual, less pure. So we suppress the hunger until it mutates into addiction, to drama, to fantasy, to the thrill of being chosen. The mechanics of attraction become a game of shadow puppets. He mirrors your strength. You mirror his vulnerability. He withdraws. You chase. He returns. You surrender. The pendulum swings. Pain and pleasure become the same dance. And through it all, the psyche whispers, "This is not punishment. This is the mirror trying to wake you." What feels like manipulation on the surface is often an invitation from the soul to stop outsourcing your power, to stop waiting for someone else's certainty to make you feel safe, because the truth is, you were never addicted to him. You were addicted to who you became in his presence. Alive, reckless, unguarded, seen. That state was never his gift to you. Sentence, it was your forgotten self resurfacing for a few fleeting moments. And this is where Jung's immoral insight becomes medicine. Desire is the shadow's language of evolution. When you meet it consciously, it stops being control and becomes creation. The feminine psyche doesn't awaken through rules. She awakens through experience, through the shock of remembering her own fire. So no, you're not wrong for wanting intensity. You're not shallow for craving the pull of polarity. But the work is to realize defamation doesn't belong to him. Pensions, it belongs to you. The guilt-calm dominance you admire, that's your inner masculine asking to come home. The tension you crave, that's your body's way of remembering aliveness. The obsession that feels like a spell, that's your unconscious begging for integration. Once you see that, the spell breaks. You stop chasing mirrors, illusions. You start dancing with your own reflection, fishing. This is where attraction becomes something higher. No longer a hunger that devours you, but a flame you can hold without burning. The moment you stop needing a man to give you that energy, you become magnetic in a way that no strategy can imitate. Tattoos, not by playing games, not by suppressing your softness, but by standing in the full paradox of your nature, both wild and wise, both sensual and sacred. That is what Jung called individuation, the journey from projection to embodiment, pensions to self-possession. And it begins the moment you stop asking, why did he make me feel this way? And start asking, what part of me was waiting to feel this alive? Because every immoral desire has a sacred root. Windshield, it's not about losing control. It's about reclaiming what you once surrendered to survive. So, as we continue this journey, don't demonize your attraction. Decode it, unresolved, to what your body, your psyche, your soul are trying to tell you through it. Because when you do, restless, you are never powerless in love. Relinquency in it, mailbox, and awareness, my love, imprisonment, are the most seductive power there is. The mirror effect, why we fall for emotional power, being missiles. Elegance. When a woman tells her story of heartbreak, it often begins the same way. I don't even know why I fell for him. Crimea. He wasn't my type. He didn't even do that much. Shields. And yet, he left an imprint that reason cannot erase. Slashing. It's because he wasn't just a man. Prejudice. He was a mirror. Carl Jung wrote that every relationship is, in essence, a psychological experiment, a projection of the inner world onto another person, so that what is unconscious can become visible. That's the mirror effect. Misinformation. We don't fall for people who simply look good. Sentient, we fall for the ones who make our unconscious visible. Isling, who unknowingly carry pieces of our lost self. Segregation. You see, the psyche is a brilliant architect. It designs encounters that force us to meet the parts of ourselves we've long abandoned. Missions, And romantic attraction is one of its most potent blueprints. When you met him, you didn't just see him, shields. You saw the reflection of everything you had forgotten you were. His confidence mirrored the power you once had to silence in yourself. Submits. His certainty reminded you of the woman who once trusted her own voice. Crimson distance reawakened the part of you that still aches for approval. That's why he could feel like home and hell at the same time, because he was both the comfort of familiarity and the confrontation with everything you've outgrown. Jung called this process projection, and he said it's not a mistake, it's an initiation. Attributes is how the soul tricks you into seeing yourself, but most of us don't recognize that. We get lost in the image. Blackmail comes from them, selfies, not through them. And so, we chase the mirror instead of meeting the reflection. That's why emotional power feels so intoxicating. It's not the man's charisma, or his calmness, or his control. Misleading. It's what those traits awaken in you. It's the recognition of your own suppressed energy. The thrill of seeing it alive in someone else. When a woman has spent decades being the caretaker, the one who listens, absorbs, holds, crimson of a man who is grounded, decisive, even slightly untouchable, awakens something primal. The longing to rest inside certainty. Not because she's weak, but because her own inner masculine, the part that protects, directs, and contains, has been exhausted, shells, and doesn't need his dominance. She needs her own inner stability reflected back to her. This is the mirror effect in its rawest form. What we desire is what we've disowned. Misled, but the mirror doesn't only show strength. It also reveals our wounds. Think about the men who made you feel invisible, the ones who gave little and left you craving more. Why do they linger longer than the ones who treated you well? Both. Because their absence mirrors an old absence. Crimson terribly memory of not being chosen, of having to earn love, of feeling too much or not enough. And the body, loyal to its history, confuses repetition with redemption. It keeps returning to the familiar wound, hoping this time it will finally heal. That's why emotional power feels magnetic, because it's not just attraction, it's recognition. Your unconscious remembers the pattern and calls it love. But there's a deeper truth here, one Jung hinted at again and again. Missing. We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, misdemeanored by making the darkness conscious. Relinquies who trigger us the most, silenced, are often the ones sent to show us our darkness. The unhealed child within, sentencing the hidden hunger, emissions, forgotten fire. Their power over us dissolves the moment we stop mistaking them for the source of our feelings. Because here's the secret. They didn't create those emotions. They merely activated what was already sleeping inside us. You were always that passionate, that alive, that capable of depth. You just needed a mirror bright enough, or brutal enough, to remind you. And sometimes, that reminder comes in the form of chaos. Maybe you met him right after a divorce. Philippines. He appeared when you'd sworn you were done with men. Maybe he arrived during that silent, middle chapter of life, where everything felt predictable, responsible, and numb. He was the disruption, the jolt back into the body, the embodiment of something you had long stopped believing in. Intensity, missions. Shattered without awareness becomes obsession. Because when the mirror awakens what you've buried, corrections, you want to keep it alive, even if it hurts. That's why women replay old messages, revisit conversations, stalk profiles, write letters they'll never send. They're not chasing him. They're chasing the state they felt in his presence, the moment they were fully seen, even if only for an instant. Missionary. But here is where your power begins to return. When you realize that state was never his to give, it was yours, temporarily reflected through him. He just happened to stand in the right place for the light of your own soul to hit the mirror. Once you see that, the spell starts to break. Imprison, not because you stop feeling, but because you start owning what you feel. Smith. Sentencing becomes awareness. Homosexuals. The craving becomes creativity. The obsession becomes initiation. Jung called this transformation the beginning of individuation. Jung, a woman, stops seeking herself in others and starts integrating the fragments within her. When that happens, attraction no longer feels like a trap. Mistakenly, compass. Every pull, every trigger, every longing turns into information about what part of you is asking to come home. Theft, that's how emotional power shifts. Feminism, men use to control. Tensions to something women use to awaken. Fishing, you start seeing patterns differently. That alpha energy that used to overwhelm you. You can feel it now without collapsing. You can look at it, breathe through it, and say, I recognize this energy. Crimson, it too. Because you do. Every trait that once captivated you, calm, mystery, confidence, direction, exists inside you, waiting to be embodied. And the moment you embody it, you no longer need to chase the mirror. You become it. That's the quiet shift that terrifies and liberates at once. You no longer seek approval through being desired. You no longer confuse attention with connection. You no longer measure your worth by who stays, because your power no longer depends on being reflected. It emanates. When you walk into a room, the air changes. Not because you're performing, but because you're present. You have met your shadow, and it no longer controls you. That's when desire becomes devotion, not to a man, but to life itself. You start noticing beauty differently. You speak slower. Shields to your own breath. You no longer need to fill silences. You've made peace with them. That, Jung would say, is the sign of a woman who has stopped projecting her power outward. She has reclaimed her animus, the inner masculine, and now both sides of her psyche dance together in quiet balance. She doesn't chase, she magnetizes. She doesn't react, she responds. She doesn't need to be chosen. She already is. Because once you've integrated what the mirror showed you, no one can use it against you again. Of emotional power collapses, and all that remains is presence, the kind that heals, that inspires, that transforms everything it touches. In the next part, we'll explore how to turn this mirror inward, how to work with your shadow, not as an enemy, but as a guide. Because what you've been calling too much might just be your most sacred power waiting to be reclaimed. The feminine wound beneath obsession. Somewhere between longing and loss, imprisonment to be seen and fearing to be seen too much, a woman learns the art of shrinking. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly, in the little compromises, negligence, and the smiles that say, "I'm fine." Manslaughter in the moments she gives more than she has, believing that love will eventually notice her. This is the hidden wound beneath obsession, the wound of unworthiness. When a woman has lived for years being the one who tends, who forgives, who stays, sentient, she learns to find safety not in being loved, sentencing, but in being needed. And slowly, almost invisibly, her worth begins to orbit around what she gives, not what she is. So when she finally meets someone who ignites her, who looks at her with a hunger that feels both holy and dangerous, something ancient wakes up inside. The body remembers. The girl who was told, "You're too emotional, too intense, too much." She suddenly feels chosen. Feminism. She believes she's finally found the place where her depth isn't a burden, where her fire isn't too wild. But that moment is also where the cycle begins again, because deep down, the part of her that never learned to receive still believes she must earn what she's already worthy of. That's why the unavailable man feels so intoxicating. His silence becomes a challenge. His distance becomes meaning. His inconsistency becomes proof that she must try harder. She doesn't chase him because she's weak. She chases the moment when she felt seen, impartial to feel it again. Not because of who he is, but because of who she was in his gaze. Fallback, desired, enough. And that is how the feminine wound turns into obsession. It's shattered, sickness. Emissions, it's the unconscious attempt to heal the first heartbreak. Offspring that happened long before any man. Jung once said, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent." Misled women inherited this wound. They watched their mothers love men who could not meet them. They saw silence become survival. Missions that patience equals virtue, and that desire must always come second. So they grew up mastering the language of empathy, bishops, but forgetting the language of need. They learned to understand everyone, allergies, except themselves. And the world praised them for it, for being resilient, kind, endlessly forgiving. But deep inside, the soul whispered, "When is it my turn to be held?" When she meets the emotionally powerful man, that whisper turns into a scream, because his presence reawakens the polarity she starved of. Certainty, direction, focus. But she confuses that energy with salvation. She doesn't realize she's projecting her own lost masculine, the part of her that knows how to protect and decide, onto him. That's why his withdrawal feels like abandonment, even if they barely know each other. It's not him she's losing. It's her inner protector, gone missing once again. This is the feminine wound in its rawest truth. It is not the fear of loneliness. It is the fear that without being chosen, she disappears. But here psychology gently teaches, the way out of the wound is not through chasing love. It's through reclaiming the parts of yourself that you gave away just to be loved. Every obsession begins as a cry of the forgotten self. The woman you silenced to stay acceptable. The one who felt deeply, spoke honestly, wanted fiercely. She's still inside you, knocking on the walls of your ribs, begging to be let out. And each man who triggers you, each moment of longing, shields, heartbreak, is life's way of asking, will you finally turn toward her? It's not about blaming men. They are mirrors, not villains. They play the roles our psyche writes for them. Some show us how much we can love. Others show us how much we abandon ourselves to love. But once you see the pattern, you hold the power to change the script. You begin to understand that the ache you feel, Ishins, is not a curse. It's a compass. It points straight to the place inside you where love has not yet arrived. It points to the moments you accepted crumbs when you deserved a feast. It points to the times you said yes, dismissal when your soul was screaming no. And slowly, through awareness, misled becomes wisdom. Because every woman who has ever been obsessed was, at some point, simply trying to love herself through another. The healing begins when she stops waiting for his return and starts returning to herself. You can feel it, that subtle shift. One day you wake up and the pain is still there, but it no longer defines you. It's quieter now. It's become a teacher. You no longer crave his message to feel seen. You crave your own stillness. You no longer replay the story to make sense of it. You write a new one. This is what Jung called individuation through suffering, the sacred alchemy of turning pain into presence. When the feminine finally looks at her wound and says, I see you. I will not abandon you again. From that moment, obsession starts to dissolve, because she no longer confuses attention with love. She no longer equates rejection with worth. She no longer searches for herself in someone else's eyes. Instead, she begins to meet her own gaze in the mirror. And it's no longer a mirror of lack. It's the mirror of return. Stiffness, you see. Obsession is the soul's clumsy way of trying to re-enter the body. It's love knocking from the inside out. And when you finally open that door, what walks in is not a man. It's your own wholeness. Then, desire changes shape. It's a hunger to possess and becomes a devotion to presence. It stops being a plea and becomes a prayer, because the woman who has healed her feminine wound does not need to be chosen to feel desired. She desires because she is alive. She loves because she is love. Her worth is no longer conditional. Her body is no longer ashamed. Her longing is no longer a symptom. It's her compass. And when that kind of woman loves, she doesn't fall. Eschens. She rises. Enchens. She becomes the embodiment of what Jung called eros conscious. Eschens. Love that no longer seeks to escape the self, but to express it. So, if you're listening to this, and your heart still tightens when you think of him, if you still find yourself replaying the moments you felt seen, heard, wanted, remember this. You don't need to kill the memory to heal. Sentencing, you just need to reclaim the part of you it awakened. That part was never lost. She was only waiting for your permission to come home. Bush, let her in. Because the end of obsession is not forgetting him. It's remembering you. In the next part, we'll descend into the shadow itself, where desire stops being a trap and becomes a teacher, where the parts of you that you once called too much, permissible because the source of your deepest freedom. Shadow work, meeting the desire within. Path, mediation as the healing path. The problem was never desire itself. It was her relationship with it. You see, desire is not a sin. It's a signal. It's the psyche's way of saying, sentenced, there is life here. There is something that wants to move through you. But because we were taught to fear its power, we learn to bury it. And what is buried becomes shadow. Jung called this process repression, the of everything we believe we must hide to be loved. For centuries, women were taught to bury their fire under kindness, sentencing their sexuality under shame, citizenship under obedience. We were told that to be good is to be contained. Crimson after generation, our wildness became illness. Our passion became pathology. Our hunger became hysteria. But you can only suppress life for so long before it finds another door. Mississippi really is life trying to find its way back into the body. The first step of shadow work is not to judge the desire, but to listen to it. Because every forbidden feeling carries a message. What you crave is not wrong, it's just unconscious. Ask yourself, does my desire want to give me, not take from me? What truth is hiding behind the fantasy? Maybe, of being pursued isn't about a man's attention at all. Maybe it's the soul remembering what it feels like to stop chasing and finally be received. Maybe the fantasy of surrender isn't about giving up control to someone else, but about resting from decades of being in control of everything. Maybe what you call lust is your body asking for deeper connection with life, with creativity, with your own essence. Possession's desire is sacred information. It's the compass of the soul. But if you ignore it, it becomes compulsion. If you meet it consciously, it becomes creation. That is the heart of Jung's shadow work. Not fighting the darkness, but illuminating it from within. So tonight, instead of suppressing what you feel, try this. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath into your belly, not your chest. Notice where the heat of desire lives in your body. Your throat, your chest, your pelvis, your skin. Now, without judgment, let yourself feel it fully. Not as a story about someone else, but as pure energy. What does it feel like? Fire? Immigration? Pressure? Tingling? Testing? That's life. That's Eros, the creative force that built the universe. In Jungian terms, Eros is the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. It's the pulse that connects body and soul, matter and spirit, human and divine. When a woman suppresses Eros, submissive with her intuition, her creativity, her magnetism, she starts living from duty, not desire, from survival, not aliveness. Shadow work is how she remembers, and remembering is not always gentle. Sometimes it begins as chaos, sudden attraction, emotional intensity, a sense that life is pulling you into something irrational. But the invitation is always the same. Childbirth. Can you stay present with what you feel without running from it? To meet your desire is to meet your fear. The fear of being too much, of being rejected, of being consumed. But those fears are ghosts from another time. They belong to the little girl who learned that love meant self-denial. They belong to generations of women who were punished for their aliveness. You are not them. You are the woman who gets to end the story differently. When you sit with desire long enough, missions, it changes shape. It softens. Stiffness, it stops demanding and starts revealing. It tells you, I don't just want to be touched, I want to be met. I want to be seen by the one inside you who has been sleeping. Because desire, at its deepest level, is the soul's hunger for reunion with itself. Theological you chase outside is often the missing part of you, the inner masculine, the inner animus, the one who protects and holds, the one who acts without fear. When you call him back inside, the endless craving begins to quiet. You start to feel safe in your own energy again. You stop needing to be desired to feel alive. You are aliveness itself. Junction said, shimmer. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Shadow work is that act of making the unconscious conscious, dismissing the unlived back to life. It's not a single event. It's a slow reweaving of trust with your own body. You start noticing the small betrayals, battlefield, the moments you say yes when you mean no, ways you numb your longing with busyness, setbacks, the times you dim your light so others feel comfortable. And you begin to stop, stiffness, to breathe. Hamilton felt, even when it's inconvenient. That's how the feminine shadow becomes integrated, not by trying to be more spiritual, blitz, by becoming more honest, sembled, by saying, send, yes, I want, yes, I feel, merciless, yes, I am both soft and fierce. Shadow work is not about fixing yourself. It's about loving the parts that never got love. It's looking at the woman inside who still trembles when she wants something and whispering, you are safe to want. It's looking at the part of you that craves intensity and saying, you are allowed to burn. It's looking at the voice that says, I'm too much, and replying, you were just never met with enough depth. This is the spiritual maturity Jung spoke of, not the absence of darkness, appointment, but the intimacy with it. When a woman becomes intimate with her darkness, crimson, her light changes quality. It's no longer fragile, smith, no longer seeking validation. It becomes steady, magnetic, sovereign. You can feel it in her presence. She no longer hides behind softness or strength. She has both. She no longer flirts with power. Uncomper. She is power. Because the woman who has met her shadow, Smith cannot be manipulated by it anymore. She recognizes when desire is being mirrored to her, when attention is a transaction, committing is a wound in disguise. And she smiles, not cynically, but knowingly, she has danced with the dark, and she is not afraid. That's the true secret Jung tried to teach. Selfish, you don't heal by running toward the light. Enlarge by bringing the light into the dark. So tonight, instead of asking, "How do I stop wanting him?" ask, "What is my desire trying to awaken in me?" Instead of asking, "Why can't I let go?" ask, "What part of me still needs to be held?" Instead of asking, "When will I stop feeling this fire?" ask, "What can I create with it?" Because when a woman reclaims her desire, she doesn't destroy. She creates. She writes. She paints. Bishops. Migration. She prays. Pfizer becomes devotion, and her life becomes art. That is the miracle of shadow work. It doesn't turn you into something new. It returns you to what you were before the world told you to hide. So breathe, blitz, and let yourself remember, you are not the wound. You are the light discovering itself through the wound. And your desire, the one you were taught to fear, is the bridge back home. In the next part, we'll step into that homecoming, where the woman who has met her shadow becomes whole. We'll explore the alchemy of power and presence, how feminine energy, once integrated, turns from chaos into magnetism. The alchemy of power and presence. Shelter. There's a moment in every woman's healing when she stops asking for closure, sentencing, and starts creating meaning. The obsession fades, not because she stopped feeling, but because she finally understands what it was trying to teach her. That moment, quiet, luminous, is what Jung would call alchemy. Not the turning of metal into gold, but the transmutation of pain into power, of longing into presence, of chaos into creation. Alchemy isn't about perfection. It's about integration. It's the art of saying, "This too is me." The darkness that once consumed you, the softness that once embarrassed you, sentencing that once terrified you, all of it is now included. Nothing exiled, nothing denied. That is where true feminine power begins, not in dominance, not in control, but in wholeness. When you no longer fight your own nature, bribed life itself. The woman who has met her shadow, Smith doesn't chase anymore. She doesn't manipulate, doesn't perform. She simply is. And that being has gravity. You can feel it when she enters a room. Eshens. The air changes. The noise quiets. Permission notice without knowing why. That is the power of presence. It's not loud, but it's undeniable. Stiffness, because it isn't coming from effort. Bliss, it's coming from alignment. Carl Jung wrote that when a person becomes whole, sentenced in energy that others can feel instinctively, he called it the numinous, sentencing sacred charge that flows from authenticity. When a woman embodies this state, she becomes both mirror and light for others. She doesn't have to prove anything. Her energy speaks before her words ever do. But what creates this presence? How does pain turn into power? It happens the moment you stop outsourcing your fire. When you realize that the calm you admired in him was actually your own strength waiting to be remembered, that the depth you felt in his silence was the depth of your own soul echoing back to you, that the magnetism you projected onto him was your own unclaimed radiance. You start pulling those energies back, one by one, like reclaiming lost stars from another galaxy. And each time you call one home, your field becomes stronger. Your boundaries become clearer. Your light becomes steadier. That's the alchemy. What used to feel like a wound becomes a portal. Fishing. What used to break you blits wisdom. Stiffness. Because every heartbreak carved space slipped her for something larger to move through you. Every loss stripped away what was borrowed so that what was real could remain. It's why the most magnetic women you'll ever meet, bishops, are not the ones untouched by pain. They're the ones who learned how to transmute it. They don't need to speak of power. They are power. Subtle, rooted, alive. They understand that true power is paradox. It's strength in surrender. It's softness that can hold the storm. It's love that doesn't collapse under rejection. When a woman reaches this state, her relationships change without effort. She no longer attracts chaos to feel alive. She attracts depth, stillness, and truth. Because like energy recognizes like. Jeff, he once tried to control her. Pressions now feel small in her presence. The ones who see her clearly don't want to possess her. They want to stand beside her. This is not superiority. It's sensation. When you rise, your life rearranges around your new frequency. That's the quiet magic Jung hinted at when he spoke of individuation. The process of becoming a complete self. It's not about being perfect, Simmons. It's about being congruent. Your thoughts, your feelings, your body, your choices, finally moving in the same rhythm. You no longer live in contradiction. You are coherence embodied, and coherence is magnetic. When your words match your energy, people trust you without knowing why. When your presence matches your purpose, the right opportunities appear as if by accident. When your body and your soul move together, you stop forcing and start flowing. Patience. That is the feminine alchemy. The transmute we're due, the transformation of doing into being. Because the deepest form of attraction is not strategy, it's self-possession. The more fully you inhabit yourself, the more life itself leans toward you. You've probably noticed this. Infections you were most magnetic were never when you were trying. It was when you were immersed in laughter, in creativity, in your own rhythm. That's because presence is power. It's the moment you stop seeking and start emanating. The world responds to coherence the way iron responds to a magnet. And yet, this power isn't cold or detached. It's warm, compassionate, deeply human. It doesn't dominate, it invites. It doesn't seduce, it awakens. You see, the woman who's done her shadow work, assisting no longer uses allure to survive. Simmons' presence to serve. Jeff energy heals without trying. Her love liberates instead of binding. Her silence speaks more truth than her explanations ever did. Because being what Jung called the self, disbelief of consciousness, bribed of opposites, the bridge between heaven and earth. This is why, When such a woman loves again, sentenced, it feels different. It's no longer an escape from loneliness. It's an extension of wholeness. She doesn't fall into love. She rises into it. Shimmer doesn't seek safety in another. She is safety, for herself and for those who meet her. Her power no longer comes from being desired, but from being present, from standing in her truth so completely, slashing that the whole room starts to remember theirs. That is the alchemy of power and presence. It's not about becoming untouchable. It's about becoming unshakable. Because when you've faced your own shadow, nothing outside you can threaten your light. And when you've integrated your inner masculine and feminine, you move through life with grace, decisive yet fluid, soft yet sovereign. You become, as Jung once wrote, a living symbol of the divine union. Yes, walk differently, you speak differently. You no longer demand, you declare. You no longer chase, you create space. And in that space, everything aligned with your truth finds its way to you, symbol, about force, without fear. That is the paradox of feminine power, pollution. The more she embodies stillness, the more the world moves around her. So, pause for a moment now. Feel the rhythm of your own breath, the quiet pulse beneath your skin. That's not emptiness, that's presence, missions, the living proof that you've come home. You are not waiting for love anymore. You are love, waiting for nothing. And in that realization, you have already won. Close the circle with a ritual of return, where breath becomes remembrance and remembrance becomes freedom. The return to wholeness. Gibbs. Every journey of awakening ends where it began, inside the quiet space of your own heart. Afflict after the storms, after the revelations, after every letting go and every rising again, you arrive here, not wiser in theory, but softer in truth, essence. And this softness is strength. The Raj is not perfection, shields, permission to be fully human, have walked through the shadow. You've seen how desire and pain are two faces of the same God. One burns, the other heals, but both are trying to bring you home. You've looked into mirrors that once terrified you. You've met the woman you used to abandon. You didn't rescue her. You sat with her, and that was enough. This is what Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Because the goal of all shadow work, all heartbreak, all desire, is not to escape the human experience. It's to inhabit it completely. You are no longer the woman, princess who needed someone else's gaze to feel seen. You are no longer the girl who equated being wanted with being worthy. You are the witness now, the still point within the turning world. Breathe. Feel your body as it is, misconduct as it should be. The rise and fall of your chest, the warmth behind your ribs, the gentle ache in your throat. All of it, human, divine, whole. You are not broken pieces trying to fit together. You are the mosaic itself, a masterpiece of contrast and light. The parts that were once at war now sit at the same table. The shadow no longer hides behind the light. The light no longer denies the shadow. They bow to each other, teacher and student, fishing and dawn. And you, limbs where they meet. This is wholeness. Not the absence of pain, but the intimacy with it. Not the end of desire, but the freedom within it. Because when you've met your shadow, desire no longer controls you. It becomes an instrument, a sacred current moving through your life, guiding you toward creation, not destruction. Unborn, you can feel it now, can't you? That subtle pulse under the surface. Pilgrimness that was never gone. Cleanliness and holding for your permission to rise. Esshens, psychologists, I am not here to consume. I am here to connect. Pornography, I am not here to chase. I am here to create. And creation doesn't always mean doing. Sometimes it means being. Being the stillness in the noise, the softness in the storm, the warmth in the cold. That's the new feminine, not the one that fights to prove her worth, but the one that embodies it silently. She doesn't need to be understood. She understands herself. Sometimes keep balance. She is balance. Jung called this integration, the sacred marriage of opposites, the inner union of the feminine and the masculine, shields and the shadow, the lover and the beloved. It's the moment you realize there was never anything missing, only aspects of yourself waiting to be remembered. And now you remember. You remember the girl who once dreamed. You remember the woman who carried the weight. You remember the soul who kept walking, even when she couldn't see the path. She is all of you. You are all of her. No more fragments. No more halves. Just presence. When you walk into the world now, you won't need to announce your change. Stiffness will do it for you. Ensigns will speak it. Your eyes will carry it. And those who are meant for you, not to save or complete you, but to walk beside you, will feel it instantly. They will not see a woman chasing love. They will see love walking in human form. That is what it means to be whole. And from this wholeness, everything becomes sacred. Even the ordinary, the morning coffee, the sound of rain, the quiet you give yourself in the mirror, each a reminder. I am alive. I am enough. So now, let's close this journey the way it began, with breath. Place a hand over your heart. Inhale slowly. Feel the air move through you, the same breath that moved through your ancestors, the same life that moves through every woman who ever learned to rise. Exhale. Let go of the story. Let go of the striving. Let go of the idea that you need to become anything more. You are already everything. This exact moment is the fullness you are searching for. Inhale again. Feel the light expanding inside your chest. Exhale softly. Whisper to yourself, I have come home. You have. You've come home to the body that carries your truth, to the heart that forgave, to the voice that finally speaks with gentleness, to the woman you were always meant to be, whole, luminous, unafraid. And now, when the world looks at you, it won't just see beauty, it will feel peace. Because a woman at peace with her shadow is a mirror the world cannot look away from. She is the embodiment of the divine made human, the living proof that healing is not about becoming light, but about becoming real. So, take one last breath with me. Inhale into your power. Exhale into your presence. And remember, you do not need to chase love, blister, because you are love. You do not need to seek wholeness, because you never lost it. You simply forgot. Until now, welcome home. If this journey has reminded you, leave a word below. Not for me, but for yourself. A word that names your return. Because the world needs women who remember who they are. Before you leave, take one last breath. Use. If walked through desire, through loss, through silence, and returned home to yourself. If these words stirred something inside you, if a part of you whispered, "Yes, this is me," don't let that voice fade when the screen goes dark. Stay with it, feed it, let it grow. Inner battle psychology is a space for women awakening their truth through Jungian wisdom, through shadow work, through the sacred art of remembering who they are. If this journey touched you, subscribe not as a reaction, but as a ritual of remembrance. Every video here is a mirror, a breath, a question, committing back to your inner light. So, take another breath, and if you feel called, committing a word below, not for me, but for yourself, a single word that names your return. Theft, because the world needs women who remember who they are.